Hello and welcome to the 5th Mid-Development webinar. My name is Hannah and I am an Operations Analyst for MCS. So as I stated previously, this is the 5th Mid-Development webinar. So if you've missed any of the previous 4 sessions, they are all available to watch on our YouTube channel. So the focus for today's webinar is that we'll be going through the process of completing and uploading an MCS compliance certificate. And if there's any questions, you can either drop them into the chat function, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen, or there is an Ask a Question button as well. So I'll do my best to answer these if there are any at the end of the session. Just a note, I'm not technically trained, so if I'm unable to answer these questions, what we'll do is I'll approach the correct person within our team and a document will be released with all the questions and answers at the end of the session, and they will be emailed out to all participants throughout the webinar. Okay, so what I'll start with first of all is just a little bit about the actual MCS compliance certificate. So an MCS compliance certificate is only used for heat technology certificates. For example, heat pumps, which is what we'll be focusing on today, so air source and ground source. There's also a compliance certificate for solar thermal technologies and also biomass technologies as well. However, we won't be focusing on them today. And the compliance certificate itself was introduced with the purpose of assisting RHI. So what I'll do first of all is I will just share my screen and I'll get a blank copy of the MCS compliance certificate. So if you just give me 1 second, I'll do that now. Okay, so you should be able to see the blank copy of the compliance certificate on your screen here. And what we've got on this compliance certificate is that we've got 8 sections to it. So first of all, we've got general information, then we've got design information, heat emitter information, domestic hot water, if it's a ground source heat pump, EPC, and declarations, and finally, details regarding the MCS contractor themselves. So what we'll do is we'll start with the first section, which is general information, which is pretty self-explanatory. It starts with the name of the owner. So what we'll do here is we'll enter the name of the system owner. Then what it asks for is the address of the installation. So I will use the MCS office address. And we'll enter the postcode as well. And then we move on to point 1.3, which is regarding address of the owner if this is different than the address of the installation. So basically what this is asking for, say if the owner of the system doesn't live at the address where the installation is installed, that's where you'd enter their address. However, for the purpose of this, what we'll do is we'll put NA. And I can't stress enough how important it is to put NA into the fields that are not applicable to yourself, as if you leave these blank, you will not be able to upload these to the MID itself, which it does state at the top, note all fields require a value, so please use NA or 0 where a question is not applicable to yourself. And then what we'll do now is we'll move on to section 2, which is design information. So the first question within design information is whether the system itself is intermittent or continuous heating. And you do have a drop-down selection here where you can pick intermittent or continuous. And a little bit of background on the both. So intermittent heating means that the system can provide all the space heating requirements on the design day with a period of no more than 16 hours without any use of any supplementary heaters. And continuous heating means that the heating system itself can provide all the space heating requirements on the design day with a period of no more than 24 hours without any use of supplementary heaters. So there's a little bit of background on the two, and then what you do is just go ahead and pick whichever suits the installation that you fitted the best. So in this case, we'll pick continuous heating. And then what we'll do is we'll move on to section 2 within this section, which is design external temperature in degrees Celsius. So in this section, what you'll need to do is enter the design external temperature used within the heat loss calculation. And you can refer to section 4.2.1b and also table 2, which is in the relevant standard. In this case is MAS 3005. So what we'll do here is we'll just enter a figure and we'll put 50 degrees. And then we'll move on to the total building heat loss at design condition in kilowatts. So here you will need to enter the total heat loss of the building in kilowatt hours. So what we'll do here is we'll put 30. And we'll move on to section 3, which is regarding the heat emitter information. The first question is just what heat emitter types are installed. And this is referring to the emitter types listed in the heat emitter guide. And you do have to list all these heat emitters that are installed. But just to note for yourselves, it's only necessary to list the heat emitters installed in the property. And it's not necessary at all to list the type and also the number of heat emitters installed within each room. So for this practice, what we'll do is we'll just say MCS has its own type of heat emitters. And we'll move on to point 2, which is what is the temperature of water leaving the heat pump when supplying space heating in design day condition? So this is the maximum temperature of the water leaving the heat pump in heating mode accordance with the design. And this itself is likely to be less than the maximum that the heat pump could achieve. So what we'll do here is we'll put 40 degrees down. And finally, within the heat emitter section, it asks, has a copy of the room by room heat loss calculations and also has the heat emitter selections been given to the client? So on this case, this is just for you to confirm yes or no if you've done this. So we'll just put yes for this case. And we'll move on to section 4, which is domestic hot water. So this asks what are the maximum design water temperature in degrees Celsius, leaving the heat pump when in hot water heating mode. So the maximum water temperature setting for leaving the heat pump when in sanitary hot water mode, that this should be as high as possible. And this is to maximise the stored temperature, and also it will reduce the need for any direct electric immersion heaters. So we'll put 50 degrees. And then it asks, has the DHWS, which stands for Domestic Hot Water System, reheat time, has that been estimated and agreed with the customer? So once again, this is just for you to confirm whether yes or no if you've done this. So in this case, we'll put yes. And then we'll move on to section 5. So as this is a heat pump compliance certificate, there are 2 technology types that you can be completing this for, ground source and air source. Section 5 itself only actually relates to ground source installations. So if you're doing this on behalf of an air source heat pump installation, you do not need to fill this section out. However, you do need to put NA into both of these fields. However, what I'll just do is I'll go through what these sections mean. So the first section within ground source heat pumps asks regarding the type of ground heat exchanger. And it does list what these are. So they can be vertical, horizontal, slinky, or open loop. And you do need to indicate if it's horizontal, you need to indicate the minimum depth in meters. And if it's vertical, you need to indicate the maximum depth in meters as well. So for this case, what we'll do, we'll say we're doing an air source heat pump installation. So we are using the NAs in this field. And we'll move on to the EPC. So the EPC is the Energy Performance Certificate. And the first question asked within this Energy Performance section is regarding the EPC number itself. So this is where you would enter that EPC number. So if the EPC is a domestic property, you should have that EPC number. However, if it's not and you do not have it, you can enter NA into this section, but we're just going to go ahead and say that we've got the EPC number. So we'll enter a false EPC number now. And we'll move on to section 2 and 3, which is regarding the EPC annual space heating and also the annual hot water demand figure. So these figures normally appear at the bottom left-hand side of the EPC document. However, I do know the last couple of months, the EPC document has changed slightly. And from memory, these figures can now be found on the second page of the EPC. So if you are struggling to find these at all, I'd recommend to have a look at the second page first of all. So I'll just fill these in. And then we're on to section 7, which is the declarations. Okay, and that is regarding whether you need to state if you're authorised to complete the certificate on behalf of the MCS contractor named below. And also if the customer will receive an MCS installation certificate within 10 working days of the installation commissioning date, which is actually stated within the MCS standards itself. And also if the actual standards have been adhered to, which in this case is MCS 3005. And finally, whether the installation actually complies with the system designs as you would have agreed with the customer. So this is just the declaration. So you just need to go through and actually put yes within these columns or no if you haven't done these. So in this case, we're going to say we've done all these. So we're going to enter yes. And then on the final section itself is regarding the MCS contractor, which you'll need to enter the full name of the contractor, the job title of the contractor, and the date that they've completed this compliance certificate. So I will fill this out now. My name's Hannah, I work for MCS, and the date today is the 19th of the 5th, 2021. Okay, so as you can see here, we've completed the MCS compliance certificate and we've filled everything in, and if we've not got any applicable fields, we have put NA into these fields as well. So it has been completely filled in. And what I want to draw your attention to is also the guidance tab. So this is the guidance tab within the compliance certificate itself. It gives you a little bit of guidance of how to fill these out, and it also states the relevant section within the standards itself. So if you are struggling, I would recommend to have a little look on here as well. And it also has a version tab as well, which states any amendments since the publication, so you can see what's changed on the compliance certificate so you keep up to date. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just stop sharing my screen on that compliance certificate. And what I wanted to do is just show you the MCS website of how to actually download the compliance certificate and how to find the relevant standards that it refers to as well. So I'll just do that for you now. Okay, so everyone should see the MCS website on the screen, and there is a button here which takes you straight to the MCS standards. And if you also click here on the menu, you can see MCS standards as well. So we'll use the quick access button. And what happens is it takes you to this page and you would click on installer standards. Then you would go to the relevant technology. In this case, we are looking at heat pumps. So we click on heat pumps. And here is the relevant standards, which is MIS 3005. And then if you scroll down slightly, you've got compliance certificate 002, which is the blank template that we've just downloaded and used. So that's how you would locate them on the website. So what I'll do now is I'll stop sharing my screen again and I'll go on to the MID and I'll show you how to actually upload that compliance certificate onto the MID. Okay, I'll share my screen now. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you can all see that we're on the MID. So this is our test environment. So it may look a little bit different to the MID that you've seen. And what we've done here, we've got an air source heat pump, which I said we were doing on here. And we've got a commissioning date of today, which is the 19th of the 5th, 2021. And we've added a product already. So we're going to press next. And we will enter the postcode of the address. So in this case, we're using the MCS office. I'm just going to click search. And then the drop down does come up with the address. Unfortunately, you can't see that on Crowdcast. Okay, and now it takes you to this section here, which states upload your RHI compliance certificate. So if you click select certificate, it will appear again in a drop down. Unfortunately, you can't see this, but if you go, it'll just be on your save. So when you save that compliance certificate, you just go to upload that on there. And then I'm going to do the one that we've just completed together, which is called MCS Heat Pump Compliance Certificate Completed Test. So if I press next, we can see that that has taken us to the correct next step in the process. So that compliance certificate has been uploaded correctly to the MID. However, one thing I did state to you previously was regarding if any fields have been left blank on a compliance certificate, and I just want to show you what that may look like if you try to upload that to the MID. So I'll go on select again, and what I'll do is I'll just select a completely blank, so it's not being filled in at all, compliance certificate copy. So if I try to press next, it does state that you do get a red error code. And what this states is not all required cells have been entered. Please check the following cells and enter any missing values, which is quite a few on this as I stated, because this is a completely blank compliance certificate itself. So one of the questions that we do get regarding compliance certificate is, say, for example, if you have uploaded the MCS certificate and you want to re-upload that compliance certificate, you can do that by clicking edit on the certificate and go into this field itself and reselecting the compliance certificate. So what I'll do now is I'll just upload that completed test one again, so we should be able to proceed with the next step. And another thing I did want to mention to yourselves as well is regarding, say, for example, if you are filling out this certificate and you've realised when you've got to this section, oh, I forgot to do an MCS compliance certificate, and you do not have to go all the way to the website. There is a button here on the top right-hand side of your screen which states download a compliance certificate template. So if you click on that, I'm not sure if you can see that at the bottom, but it does download like any other download, and that would be a blank template for you to use, and then you could upload that here. So what I'll do now is I'll just press next, and that should let us proceed to the next step, which it has. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually stop sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So that's everything in regards to completing an MCS compliance certificate and also uploading this. What I'm going to do now is just check if we've got any questions in the Ask a Question section. Okay, so someone said, surely number 0.2 is wrong. Shouldn't it be lower than the external temperature? Let me have a little look. This is just an example of this field. So unfortunately, if that is incorrect, I do apologise for that. And then if there's no other questions, what we'll do, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for everyone joining this webinar today. The next webinar will be on Wednesday, the 2nd of June, and that will be on the heat pump RHI questions. So what we'll do is we'll gather that document together and we'll send that out to you. So thanks for joining today. Hope everyone has a lovely day.